Hey guys, welcome back to Fix It Friday. So this week I happened to have gotten a whole bunch of handheld consoles all at once to work on. And so I thought about it and I thought maybe it'd be fun to do a little mini handheld console modding marathon. And so that's what we have here for today. So first up is I have a pair of Game Boys here. This one doesn't even power on at all, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to show you how to diagnose these things when you get them if they don't power on, and go through all the steps that we need to get this one working. This one has an older style mod which backlit the original screen, but it's not the greatest thing. I mean, if you compare this to some of the modern IPS mods, you'll see that there's a really big difference in quality. And you still have all of the problems associated with the original screen, like ghosting effects and what have you. So we're going to remove this and replace it with a modern, funny-playing IPS screen. And now finally here we also have a Sega Nomad. And so this Sega Nomad has some kind of issues with sound. I think the sound is a little bit like crackly. So it could be a variety of things. It could be the potentiometer for volume, it could be the speaker, or it could be the capacitors for the sound. So we're going to figure out what it is and make that sound nice and crisp again. And then finally we're going to replace the original screen in here and put a composite mod, which will look way better. Okay guys, so let's get right to it. Alright, so first off is this original Game Boy, and as you can probably see, this thing is in great shape. I'm flipping it around just to show you I've got some batteries in, but that doesn't matter. We're not getting any kind of power. But that's not surprising. So if you take the batteries out, you can very quickly see that there is some corrosion. So somebody long ago left batteries in here for too long, and you get a little bit of alkaline deposit on the contacts. Fixing that is very easy. You can do it a variety of different ways, but what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking some standard white vinegar that you get at the supermarket and just adding a little bit of white vinegar to these terminals here. And hopefully you can see that the white vinegar reacts with the alkaline right away. It basically is an acid, and the battery crud is basic. And so when you combine the two, you neutralize it. And you basically just clean these pads off so that they make good contact. Let's take a look over here. Yeah, this one's a little messy as well. Alright, so I'm going to give this a deeper clean, but let's see if that's enough to make this thing work. And would you look at that? Well, that's a very good sign. I thought there was going to be a little bit more to this, maybe some lines on the screen or something like that, but nope. This one looks absolutely great. The screen doesn't have any vertical lines in it. That's sometimes a thing that you get with these, and it basically has to do with some glue over here that loses its stickiness over time, and so the connections here weaken. You can fix that with adding some heat, but this guy looks absolutely perfect. So all it really needs is just a good deep cleaning. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up and give it a proper cleaning, test all the buttons, and yeah, well, let's move on to the next one. Alright, so that's the end of Game Boy number 1, and here's a quick look at Game Boy number 2. So as you can see, this one still has the original dot matrix display, and it does have a backlight installed, but as you can probably tell from the image here, it's really barely noticeable. So is this better than the original unmodified screen? Yeah, a little bit, but not by much. And nowadays we can do a ton better than this. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove this old screen mod, and we're going to replace it with a modern IPS screen by Funny Playing. So let's get started. Alright, so I've gone ahead and just opened up the case, and I took out all of the screws that attach the original screen on here. So that's where all of these little white circles are, just standard Phillips screws. So you can see that this is an old version of what's called a bivert mod, which is where you invert the colors, and that enhances the contrast on the Game Boy, and then you combine that with a backlight. So what we're going to do is we've got the soldering iron heated up, and we're going to have to just, thankfully, just remove all these components and just reverse the work. So alright, so that chip is now out of the way. You can see I bridged 2 points over here, but what I gotta do now is just make sure that these 2 pins on the connector are actually touching the motherboard again. And once I do that, the mod will be fully reversed. Oh, looks like I need some solder braid. So sometimes with bridges you can just remove them by adding some flux, but this is a little bit too much. So with a little bit of braid, just clean that right up. So now I'm just going to add flux. It looks like these pins were not lifted, so that actually does make things easier. So I'm just going to make sure they're nice and flowed and attached. All right, so it looks like now we're good to go, and we're going to continue with the IPS mod. All right, so now we're ready to install the Funny Playing mod, and it effectively consists of a couple of components. You have the modern IPS screen, you have this controller here, and then that connects to this larger PCB, which has your D-pad and all your respective buttons. And then it plugs in over here on this side, and then the opposite end goes to the motherboard. So we don't need to do very much in the way of modifying the shell. The only thing we need to clear off are these two standoffs here. These are for the original screen. They're not needed in this case. What's nice too is that removing these doesn't prevent you from putting the original screen back. You can not have those two screws in place, but you could still potentially use the original screen and it would still work. Okay, so you just have to snip them off. You don't have to do some kind of crazy elaborate kind of thing, and having them flush like that is just fine. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is, first I already attached the screen to the controller PCB, and I'm gonna just use a small bit of tape to just make sure it's attached securely over here. There we go. So that's nice and snug, not gonna go anywhere. So we're pretty much ready to go here. I'm going to leave the original bezel because it does match everything pretty perfectly on this custom shell. So we're just gonna leave it like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and just peel this back. And once you've done this, you're basically committed, and you wanna be very careful with where your hands are. Or alternatively, you should use gloves because that's even more safe. So with this 3D printed mount, I got this from Console 5. It comes with the kit. And you can just snugly put the whole assembly into this 3D print. And then you just push it down. And there you go. Everything looks great. So from here, the only thing we really have to do is just add a speaker. So for that, all I'm going to do is just take the original speaker, desolder it, and we're going to add it right back where it came from. You can also use a new speaker as well, but this one is in great shape and I see no reason to replace it. All right, so at this point we are ready to start assembling everything. So first I'm going to add this flex cable, and it goes in with this side facing towards you. You don't want to bend it too much, just enough to get it into place, and that's it. There we go. There's a little notch on the speaker that helps it line right into place. So I just had to get that taken care of. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and button all this up, and we're going to get everything connected onto the opposite side. All right, let's power this thing on and see if it works. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Well, now that it's all set, I can briefly just put on Legend of Zelda. and I can show you some of the features that the funny playing screen has. So you have brightness and contrast over here with the contrast wheel, but if you push this inward, you can also change color palettes like you're seeing me do here. And if you hold it down, you can actually, you can also change it to an LCD effect where it has the scan lines. Let's see if I can, there we go. I'm not sure if this is showing up properly on camera, but right now I have it in the scanline mode, and it gives it more of an authentic Game Boy kind of look. So I think we're all set with this one. It looks really good, and definitely a lot better than that original backlit bivert mod. All right, so now let's move on to the final console. All right, so we're here now with the final of the 3 consoles. This is the Sega Nomad, and well, I'm a little bit surprised because it sounds fine. Like, I'd been told that the sound was an issue on this one, but I'm sure you can hear the speaker sounds just fine, no issues. And then I also tried the television output, and as you can hear, that also sounds good. So I'm not sure what to do about the sound. But all that being said, I do know I'm going to be replacing the screen. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Alright, so taking these apart is easy. You just really need a screwdriver, and a single game bit screw is in the back. So once you take those off, then you just have to separate the 2 halves, and we're not even going to be bothering with this back half. This is the Sega Genesis part. So we're going to be focusing primarily here. So we're just going to remove that. We no longer need it. So here's our original screen. And so first thing we're going to do is just remove it. And you can just do this very carefully with a scalpel. Okay, so I've got the Composite Video Mod controller board over here, and I have it attached to a 3D printed mount, which I'm going to show in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. But the first thing we have to do is we have to get this little connector, which goes into here. We have to make a few changes to it just so that it's easier to connect up to the Nomad. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to snip this off, because we don't need it. And the second thing we're going to do is we're going to take this extra ground and this composite video wire, and we're going to remove those because we don't need the second ground, and the composite video wire is too short. Otherwise though, these 2 are ready to go, and we'll be able to plug them into a source of voltage and ground. So now the only other thing that we have to do is we have to solder a wire to this connector over here. So if you're going from the bottom over here, so it's pin 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's composite video out. So all I'm going to do is just take a thin wire here. I'm going to add just a little bit of flux. I'm going to tin pad number 4 and then attach them to each other. There we go. So now pad 4 is ready. And there we go. And now I'm making a point of sending them out in opposite directions because the power and the ground are going to be this way, and the actual composite video is going to be this way, so it makes sense to do it like that. All right, so now let's go ahead and start reassembling things. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to wire up the power and the ground, and you can very easily access this right over here. So this little solder pad right here, this is ground, and then let me just get that one locked in. There we go. That's better. Okay, so ground is connected, and now let's just bring this wire over right here to the power switch. We're going to connect those up and power the screen. Just like that. So you can see that these wires are very strategically positioned. You want it far away from the D-pad. You want to just kind of come up like this. You also want to avoid these holes where there's a screw post that's going to be in the way. All right. So now let's go ahead and move on to Composite Video. So you can tap Composite Video from this place, TP test pad 237. You can also get it from the pin that's right above it. So just like before, you want to be careful about where your wire is. So I'm going to make sure that mine goes just like so and avoids pretty much everything. There we go. So you can see it avoids this hole here. It just wraps around where the LED goes, and it stays far away from the controller pad. You don't want that. And so this keeps the wires very tidy, very neat, and easy to manage. Okay, so we are done. Let's go ahead and reassemble and see if this thing works. All right, so we are back, and I reassembled everything, and hopefully this is pretty clear to you guys on film, but the mod was a success, and so you can see that this screen really makes a very huge difference from the original run. Everything is nice and bright and crisp. It's definitely something I recommend if you use your Nomad on a regular basis, because it really makes a big difference. So just so you guys know, there are other options for the Nomad as well. You can also do an LCD DRV modification, and that outputs RGB instead of composite video, so the results are actually even more sharp than what you're seeing on camera here. Alright guys, so that's it for this little handheld repair and mod marathon. Everything's all working and looking better than ever before. So if you guys like this kind of content, then consider subscribing to the channel. I have videos out every Friday. And then of course, if you've got something that you need to have repaired or modified, you can always reach me directly at oneuprestorations.com. Okay guys, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.